Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the man, the myth, the legend, and great friend of the channel, and returning 2022 guest, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Looking forward to another year of these great conversations.
Yeah, I look forward to starting the week with you every week. So thank you again for doing it from me to you. It's a great treat to talk to you every Monday morning. So what I want to talk about here is something I have called for the last month or so. I'm going to share it with you and then kind of see if A, do you agree, maybe disagree, maybe you'll push it off. And then B, talk about the fact that, it's often a great time to make some money. And that is the fact that I think the Fed has to induce a recession next year. I think they have to get aggressive eventually, tighten monetary policy, suck out all of this liquidity, which I think leads to a recession. And so I just wanted to talk about that first. So I think a recession happens sometime next year, maybe Q2, Q3. What do you think about that?
I don't know about recession. That is a reduction in GDP, for a sustained period of time of what was it? I'm looking for the definition now.
2 quarters in a row. No, recession is negative GDP 2 quarters in a row.
Yeah, okay, just negative, not a certain percentage.
Not a percentage, just negative growth 2 quarters in a row.
Okay. I don't know how that happens. I mean, we're not having, an issue. Well, it depends on how many people are back to work and, the pandemic and where we stand there. But let's just say everything's, we're over that, we're getting back to work and everything's going well. I don't see how you can reduce GDP. I think GDP is going to continue to increase because we're still kind of limping along from a supply chain standpoint. A lot of things are artificially propped up because of inflation. Prices have gone up.
Yeah.
So that's also going to increase GDP.
Absolutely. You're right.
It's revenue, right? So one of the easiest ways to increase top line sales, raise your prices.
Yeah. And you're dead on because just so people know what he's talking about, Q3 GDP growth, memory serves, was 3.1%, but inflation was 5.2. So again, if you actually do the math, like for like, we were negative 2%, but that's not how GDP is calculated. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's top line sales, and the president can stand up and say, "Hey, we boosted GDP 8%. 5 of it's inflation."
Yeah, or 10 of it's inflation. It actually went backwards. Oh,
so it's interesting. So I don't
okay
see recession because more and more people are going back to work. There's still demand. We're still producing as fast as we can. The only thing that's restricting production right now is supply chain. You can't get things from overseas. So I just don't see that happening, but I do see, like we talked about before, deleveraging in assets that could be perceived as recessionary environment. But, in terms of, slowing down actual GDP, I just don't see how that's possible. There's too much demand.
Yeah, we're going to see. I still think a recession is coming next year. I love the fact that we disagree. The only thing that could happen is maybe the recession gets pushed to 2023, kind of for the reasons you've outlined. This is what I see coming, and I'll just lay the dominoes out. And I'm wrong all the time. But anyways, I see the Fed having to get aggressive, as we talked about in episode number 2. I don't think they start aggressive. I think they get behind the curve. And when they're behind the curve, when CPI gets reported at 11% in Q1, for example, then they're going to have to slam on the brakes. They're going to have to just come out. And I think we'll have a Fed induced recession because they're not going to get aggressive this week. They're going to be late to the party once again. And then bad stuff happens next year. Hopefully I'm wrong, but how I see this.
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't seen through the pandemic going back to March 2020, we haven't seen significant pullback in consumer spending. We saw an increase.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like $5 trillion just raining down on people. So
a little bit of that was part of it, but for the average consumer, most people didn't take advantage of that. And, you got maybe a little bit of stimulus, those types of things. A lot of jobs were lost. A lot of businesses had to close, but people, even, out of work, were still out spending money. They still are now. It's really interesting. What's going on with the amount of people that have exited the workforce. There is a lot of wealth out there because of assets, because of the stock market, real estate, crypto. I mean, it's the numbers of people that have quit their jobs to make a full-time living in crypto. I mean, it's a big number. I read an article about it a few weeks ago, 90,000 people or some.
Yeah, it's the again, folks, I've lived through this before. There's people that were making there. I was a manager back in the .com run up. And I had a direct employee quit to become a day trader. It worked for like 6 or 7 months, and then he had to go find a job. And
Yeah, a
again,
lot of people have been able to do that, but that's been, over the last year, we've had a very extraordinary environment because of, to your point, all of the helicopter money pumped into the economy. Now the government, with their stimulus spending, that's going to pump a lot of, liquidity into the economy apart from the Fed with infrastructure spending and things like that. So there's still, a bunch of that yet to come. But the interesting thing is how many people, even though we have record, levels of people unemployed or not working, exiting the workforce, that's not affecting spending, which is where GDP really comes from.
yeah. Well, let's play this out. And again, this is what I see coming, and I don't like what I see, but it's what I see, so I have to share it. So I think the great deleverage, as we talked about last week and again in episode 1, that will be a lot of wealth destruction, right? There are a lot of people that feel good today because the last 12 months has been easy to make money. I believe the next 12 months and certainly the next 6 months won't be as easy as the last 12 months. People start losing money, losing equity. They sell at a loss, they raise cash, they get scared, they retreat, they start spending because of holidays, and lo and behold, they got nothing left March or April. That's kind of what I
tax bill. That's when your tax bills come in. So be ready.
Be ready. Yeah. Don't forget, Uncle Sam wants his piece. So yeah, that's kind of where I see right now. I just see I see the house of cards crumbling kind of right in front of me. I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll just have to see how it all shakes out. And you would think that if, people are going to pull back and start building reserves up again, it's going to happen after the first of the year because you do have tax season coming. We've gotten through the holidays where everybody's happy, they're not going to pull back now, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But,
record retail sales. We got retail sales, I think Wednesday. I think it's going to be a record because again, we've got $1.3 trillion in excess savings still. We have every freaking retailer telling us about delays. Nothing is on sale. People are going to shop till they drop, and then they're going to turn around in January or February and go, oh my God, my credit card bill, I got no money left. The consumer is predictable, and that's just what I see coming.
Yeah. And I saw a report a few weeks ago that, consumer debt, credit card debt is on the rise.
Starting to,
obviously holidays has a lot to do with that. People have been spending ahead of the holidays this year because of delays in shipping. But, the interesting thing too, is a lot of people are tapping that equity in their real estate, in their houses.
Just started. Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah. So that's leaking its way out, into the economy. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, recession. It's just hard to see that because we really didn't even have one in the pandemic other than just being shut down.
Yeah. We kind of induced. Yeah.
Once we were able to open back up, boom, it's off to the races. So, I think we still have more opening to do. We still have more, production that we have not, put back into the system yet. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I love this conversation because we just disagree. I think, that's why I talk to experts just to kind of round out my decision. I don't pretend to be right all the time. I just kind of share what I share, and we'll see what's going forward. So again, the reason I wanted to talk about a recession specifically with you as an entrepreneur is if we have one, and again, we will have one. Is it next year or the year after? The business cycle is undefeated. Recessions are a great time to make some money if you're prepared. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to have cash and or resources available to take advantage of opportunities in recessionary times, just like any time, markets, when they're up, times are good, but it's a lot of times it's harder to make money in a bull market, especially in the peaks of it. It's much easier when, you're back in those valleys again, and able to take advantage of opportunities looking for the next round. And, we saw some of that with all the businesses that, unfortunately went out of business. A lot of new ones are reopening. When real estate values go down, people jump in. When stocks are tapering and deleveraging, people jump in and buy them, and then you can ride it back up. Most of the people who have made significant money in crypto have all made it in the last year that were newer, when they bought in, after the pandemic and rode it up. And, it's a little bit more difficult now. And then the ones that made the real money are the ones that bought in, 2 years ago, and those things. So it's a little different now, and that's where your opportunities are going to come in as we delever, as things slow down, prices change, and it creates opportunity to go in there and create value, create equity, and, take advantage of those opportunities.
Very cool. It's a lot of fun. So again, if you were going to call a recession, you're certainly not calling one next year. Would you put one out in 2023, 2024, or just, see one coming for a while?
I just don't see it happening.
Okay.
In the sense that we've experienced them before, especially with Fed policy, because if things start to go south, they're just going to jump right back in.
Yeah, that's the bugaboo, right? I don't think that's where my opinion hinges on that, right? I believe the Fed can't do what it's done the last 5 times, which is the Fed put. I believe they realize now they've got to suffer short-term pain, a la Paul Volcker, or this thing just explodes. So
now, if they pull the plug and the Fed, just lets rates go up, and they're not pumping liquidity, they're not buying bonds, assets, things like that, and they just let it play out, then yeah, you could potentially see some recessionary environment then, because prices will rise, people will pull back, they stop spending, you stop producing, and the whole trickle down effect. But that would be the catalyst, and I'm just not sure. And you have an election year coming that the Fed's going to pull the foot off the gas.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be this next year is going to be very interesting. 2022 won't be like 2021. 2021 was kind of, again, it was kind of the leverage was building. I think 2022 is going to be very interesting for entrepreneurs and investors. So stay tuned.
Big year coming.
We'll be there.
We'll be right there with you to show you how to take advantage of it. And we're going to be talking about specific ways to do that. So 2022 is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. And how can people follow you?
GregDickerson.com. That's where all my info is. YouTube podcast. Go check it out.
Thank you, buddy.